What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are doing well out there. Time to talk about a stock we talk about weekly on our Friday show, but Netflix reported earnings after the bell today, and the stock is absolutely popping like it's hot, up about 11% on that data. I've got 13% on this data. This stock is absolutely ripping to all-time highs or near all-time highs. We'll talk about that in a second, see if that signals a buying opportunity or a chance to sell if you have shares and you want to do that. Now, one of the reasons why the stock is popping in the after hours is subscriber gains topped expectations. And what I want to do is show you that 8.5 million subscribers, about 21% growth year over year. Now, where I want to show you where the bulk of those subscribers are coming, we have United States and Canada right here. We see this only grew at 0.86. And so that's not a lot of growth. That's essentially a rounding error, flat quarter over quarter. But here's where the exciting part is. For Europe, we had 4.46 million net adds. For Latin America, we had 1.2 million. And then for Asian Pacific, we had roughly 2 million net adds. So the bulk of the ads came outside the United States and Canada. The reason why that's exciting is recently Netflix has passed price increases on here in the United States. They're doing it a little bit in Europe, but take a look. Average revenue per member is $13.50 in the United States. I would say this market, while it hasn't topped out, they're not necessarily going to see user declines. I don't think you're going to see this massive growth. A lot of it was pulled forward in Q1, Q2 with the coronavirus and quarantine and things like that. What we're seeing though in the Europe, Latin America, APAC, look at this, $11, $7, $9. I know some of these countries and regions may not be as filthy rich, quote unquote, as here in the United States might be, but they have the ability to raise prices when these user growths start to top out, which I don't think is necessarily going to happen anytime soon. So these regions, we're going to see user growth. Eventually that'll top out like it has here in the United States and Canada, and they'll be able to raise prices on these people. I think it's a great model that Netflix is going down. They probably could get into the advertising business as well. So moving on to the numbers, we take a look here. 3 months ended here. We basically have quarter over quarter, year over year here. And then we've got the full year view here. Went from 20.1 billion up to 25 billion. We see just quarter over quarter, we're growing nicely. And then we grew over 1.1 billion on the revenue side just over the last year. Let's move down to our operating income because that's really what people really care about. So we went from 458, we basically doubled it, not quite, but close to doubled it to 954. Actually, we more than doubled it. So wow, 954 million now. Not as good as last quarter. Last quarter, they cleared 1.3 billion. So there was some more costs, some marketing costs, it looked like went up. Everything else was basically in line. So they spent a little bit more on marketing, probably to get those users to sign up in those other countries. And so those are users, a lot of them will keep their membership maybe for many years. So that marketing should level out at some point and pay huge dividends. So nice little $1 billion roughly on the operating side. Net income side came in at 542. That's comparable to the year ago period, down a little bit. So from a net income perspective, not as juicy, not as great, but still a cash flow generating company here. We see made $1.23 or $1.19 diluted in the quarter. That compares just off a little bit from the previous period, a little bit more shares in this quarter. So from a full year perspective, we went from 1.8 billion up to call that 2.8. So added basically $1 billion to the net income side. From the operating side, looked like we added about 1.9 billion. Really solid, obviously, if you're a Netflix shareholder. Now, here's the deal. The stock chart, which we cover weekly on our Friday show, anytime it's traded into these boxes, it's basically signal a buy, especially this lower box. Anytime you were 470 to 480, it was a buy. Anytime from 485 up to 510, it was basically a buy, because what often happened is it popped up here, and now in this zone is typically what I would call a sell zone. If you're buying and holding Netflix, I wouldn't necessarily worry about a lot of this. Now, here's the deal though. We're all the way up here. We're approaching these I would assume these are probably all-time highs up here at 572. We're a breath away from them, like $10 away from these. So that's the question you have now. If you're Netflix, if you're thinking about wanting to sell, or if it's something that you want to do, well, here's not a bad time because you're now at all-time highs. Can this stock push up above here and continue its momentum? That's really what you want to see. If you want to hold Netflix, if you want to step in here and buy at these levels, you'd want to see it hold at this level, maybe dance around for a second and then push higher. What could be the catalyst behind that? Probably just a broader market rally, everything going well in the United States economy and more broadly as well, could continue this forward. Now, what could also happen is what's happened 1, 2, 3 different times. It's popped its head up over here as it kind of dances for a second and then comes back down. In my opinion, any comeback in this would create a buying opportunity if you happen to fill this gap. I mean, we soared up here, came all the way, we created a gap down here, filled it, came up here. Now we create this big gap here. If this gap fills, I guess initially you could come in here at 540. I'd still wait to see if you can come back into a more consolidated area with this one. See if you can't pick it up maybe somewhere in these levels down in here, 520, 530. Again, that's the more conservative investor. If you're a momentum trader, things like that, that strategy should be set in stone for you, and this chart might look good to you. If you're kind of a pullback investor like I am, you're probably waiting to see what happens with this one in the coming days. Earnings really popped it, and we'll see if it's able to hold that pop like it sometimes does. But as we've seen over the last couple weeks and really the last year or so, the stock has not been able to hold these big, gigantic momentum moves. It tends to retrace it sometimes. So if you want to get into Netflix, you're kind of crossing your fingers hoping that happens. So that was Netflix popping in the after hours. Boy, if you have this one, you should be celebrating a little bit. Maybe reserve a tee time at the golf course tomorrow. Your swing should be feeling really good because this stock is popping. We'll be back again covering Netflix actually this Friday on our Fang Stock Recap show. We'll talk about it a little bit more and we'll review the chart at that time as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back again soon. Good luck with your investments.